gonna try and tell the story like I was calm, cool, and collected, but honestly, I was terrified from the moment I met these guys. We do a YouTube show now where we talk about performance cars, but my main job is I own a company and I build racing carburetors. I built a lot of stuff over the last few decades and I'm pretty good at what I do. Bravery, well, that's not really my thing. It was back in the late 1990s. I was doing a lot of racing boats, set some records, won some championships, and I got called one day to build some carburetors for this boat. It was outside the rules, so I was already suspicious, thinking these guys are pulling, something together that shouldn't be together. They were trying to cheat to win or just doing something that was just odd. It was a pair of 700-inch engines going on a 40-foot boat. There's no real interior in the thing. I mean, it was new, but it was gutted. It was like unfinished, so there's no real class designated for the design, and it just seemed to be more about cruising at medium to high speeds than really racing. The engine builder told me he needed carburetors that'd feed the engines reliably in all kinds of conditions. He had guaranteed they'd power the boat to 130 mile an hour and just consistently run at that speed without breaking a sweat. And it had to do that before they'd take delivery of it. And these guys were in a hurry for this boat. So I built the carburetors and sent them down, and I get the call. You need to come to Florida. One of the engines has a miss in it, and they just can't figure it out. Since the engines are counter-rotating, you can't swap the carburetors from one side to the other because there's a lot of other tuning involved. It's just a real pain, so it's just better for me to be down there. So, boom, next morning I'm on a flight to Miami. We take the boat out. Sure enough, one of the engines picks up this horrendous miss around 70 mile an hour, and it just never goes away. So I'm looking around down under one of the engines. There's a small little box has wires running to it. Well, these wires wrap around the engine and up by the crank trigger. Well, that trigger controls the ignition system. Well, there's your issue right there. It's radio frequency interference. So these wires are held on the front of this engine by these metal tabs, and everybody's watching me handling these wires. Well, it's got these clips, so I grab a hold of the wires hard and yank them out of these clips, and just everybody jumps off the boat into the water. And I'm like, what is going on? Guy yells, don't mess with that box, that's explosives, like C4, I'm guessing. So I look down at the engine builder who's also in the water, and I said, what are explosives doing on this boat? And he says, well, they blow that in case the Coast Guard stops them. I'm like, oh. So this isn't a poker run boat or a racing boat, it's a drug smuggling boat. So they all climb back on board. Everybody's wet. They all look pretty mad. But there's this one guy who's driving the boat. He's a pretty scary guy. Well, he just got a whole lot scarier. I mean, the guy's a drug smuggler. Cocaine cowboys, they call him, and I'm tuning their boat. Yay! Well, I'm not sure if you know what a cocaine cowboy is, but back in Miami, especially in the 80s and 90s, guys had used big go-fast boats to smuggle drugs. They'd enter a lot of poker run and racing events, and a lot of them were based off, they'd start at Key West or Bahamas area. That's where they'd load the boats up with drugs, and then they would race back up north to Miami or Lauderdale and drop the drugs off. You could also do midnight runs with these boats. They're a lot more dangerous, but if you have a really fast boat, like something like this, it goes 130 mile an hour, you can get away from a lot of people. There's a lot of helicopters now, so it's a little tougher to do. But if you do get caught by the Coast Guard or the police or whatever, that's where the explosives come into play, because they press the button, boom, the boat explodes and goes underwater. And the way the rule is written is that once a boat goes underwater, they can't use anything on the boat as evidence against you, and you're free to go. Anyway, the wiring on this box is my problem. I need to fix it, and I need to get off this boat. So the whole time I'm rerunning the wires to get him away from the ignition leads, this guy's looking at me hard. He doesn't look happy, and I'm wondering if after I get this whole deal done, I'm going to make it back to shore. Because if anyone looked like a murderer, this guy looked like a murderer. Like lots of murders. So the engine builder comes over and he says, you need to stop looking at him because you're making him mad. And I said, well, he needs to stop looking at me. Well, the guy starts yelling to Spanish to one of his other guys and says, I don't know much Spanish, but I can tell it's about me, and now I'm sure this guy hates me. So the engine builder goes over and talks to him, and I hear him bragging on me, saying, oh, he's one of the best tuners in the world, blah, blah, blah. And he's saying the words, but this guy ain't buying it. Well, I know these wires are what's causing this ignition problem, and I can't fix this boat right now. I need an excuse to bring the boat back to shore so I can get off it. But I want to make sure it's fixed, so if I do get home, the project's done and the boat's out of my life. So I relocate the wires. The guy's just screaming at the engine builder in Spanish because I'm messing with this explosives box. But I don't have a choice. He give me the evil eye. He's just unhinged, and I know enough Spanish that I know this guy thinks I'm incompetent, and I'm the reason this boat runs terrible. So I get the wires relocated. I'm sure the boat's fixed, but it's getting dark, and this guy out of nowhere pulls this big gun out from down below deck and starts shooting over the side. Apparently some sharks or tarpon or big fish had come alongside the boat and he had shot and killed one. He was pretty excited. He called it a shark. The other guy called it something else, which made him furious. And I'm like, geez, don't make this guy any madder. I mean, if this guy says he shot the tooth fairy, go, yay, good job, you got him. But the fish was out of his reach and he wanted to get it, but he couldn't start the engines because I'm working on the boat, so he lost it to the animals in the ocean, and once again he's mad at me because it's my fault. This is where things take a real bad turn for me. And I don't know why the engine builder told me this, but he said, that guy just said if you don't fix this boat, you'll be swimming with those sharks and you might be either way. So I definitely need a plan. A plan will ensure that the engine's fixed, I can get off the boat and make it home and leave them knowing it's fixed so I can get these people out of my life for good. So I reroute the wires for the explosives box, and then I pull one spark plug wire off in the back where they can't see it. We fire up the boat, gets up on plane, and the hard ignition miss is gone, but you can tell it's down on power. It's only on 7 cylinders because I'd pulled the spark plug wire off. I tell them the explosives box bad wiring jobs probably fried the ignition box, and I have a spare ignition box in my luggage back at the hotel. I don't, but they don't need to know that. I said we can go get it, and that'll take care of it. So we head back toward land, and I just get through the Haulover Inlet there in Miami in the Intracoastal, and things are safer. So I said, hey, stop the boat, I can see a spark. I put on a pretty good acting job right there. I said, oh, we got a spark plug wire off. Now the guy's screaming. He's just fuming mad. He thinks I'm a total idiot or totally incompetent. I'm leaving parts loose on his engine. He's swearing at the engine builder, pointing at me in Spanish. I mean, this isn't good at all. But I know where we're at. There's hundreds of people can see the boat. It's still light enough that they can't shoot me and throw me overboard. And I know I can swim to shore from here, so I'm not worried about drowning if I have to jump overboard. So I get the spark plug wire on. He fires the engines up and slams the throttles down. The boat jumps up on plane. It's running perfect. He's smiling, I'm smiling, and I'm praying to God the police or Coast Guard sees us because we are just flying in a no-wake zone. And if we get stopped, I can jump on the Coast Guard boat to safety. But you know the story, there's never a cop when you need one. So we get back to the dock and I'm just shaking, and he knows I'm going to just jump on the dock the minute that boat lands and he'll never see me again. So he hands the steering wheel over to one of his guys and he comes over and puts his hand on my shoulder as we dock, and he says, I'll be very offended if you don't come with us to the club tonight. He turned to the engine builder and said in so many words, I love this guy, he's one of us now. And I said, sure, I'll meet you there. Now I had a flight out for Monday morning and it was Saturday night. I got in my rental car loaded with adrenaline and I drove almost non-stop 1,300 miles back to Michigan, and I never heard from them again. I'll never know if that guy loved me or hated me, but that's how I was either going to be murdered or become an unwilling member of the Cocaine Cowboys. And to this day, I still don't know which way it was going to go.